Foam rolling your ITB is not the best use of your time. Even if it feels tight when you're foam rolling the side of your thigh, it doesn't necessarily mean that one, the ITB is tight, and two, you should keep doing it. Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa. I'm a physical therapist, I'm a run coach, and I've helped thousands of runners prevent and treat injuries. Research actually shows that you need tons, literally tons of force to actually stretch the ITB. And that's a good thing. I remember when I was in PT school in the cadaver lab, I couldn't believe how thick the fascia was. And we do not want to actually lengthen it or stretch it, even if it feels tight. I'm gonna show you exactly what you should do instead. The role of your ITB is to stabilize the hip and to stabilize the knee. And that's exactly why we want it to be tight or taut, because we don't want it to be loose. How's it gonna stabilize our hip or our knee if it's loose? So if you're foam rolling your ITB, maybe it feels tight, maybe you can just feel the tightness when you're running or post-run. Let's go through a couple exercises that you can do instead to relieve that tightness, because most likely if you feel tightness in your ITB, it's because the muscles that attach into your ITB are tight and they play this tug of war situation. So think your lateral quad, your lateral hamstring, your glute max and glute med, and then on the front end, your TFL, which is a hip flexor. So we want to address those muscles instead of foam rolling our ITB so we can actually get the most bang for our buck with our time. I want you to start by grabbing your foam roller, and we're going to roll out our lateral quad first. Now you may know how to roll out your quad, and the best way to do it is to just lay on your stomach. Put both knees on the foam roller if you have a little bit longer of a foam roller, and then you're gonna use your forearms to pull your body forward and then push it away so you can foam roll all the way from your hip to the top of your knee. Now this is usually getting, you can see my foot positions facing the ground, and I'm getting the middle quad, the rectus, the vastus medialis. But if I want to get the lateral quad, then I'm going to angle my feet, specifically my left leg. So I'm going to angle that foot and face it more into the other leg. And I'm just going to rotate my hips just a little bit. So now I'm getting the outside of my quad and I can foam roll that area. Now, if I hit a spot that feels really tight and tender, especially towards the top of my hip, I might start bending my knee and just holding this position. This is going to be a little bit more intense, I will say, but if you do about 10 of these, 5 to 10 of these, you might find that it starts to loosen up, and you want to do this every day or every other day. You don't want to just do it once and expect results. Ideally with foam rolling, you are foam rolling before you run. Research shows at least 90 seconds of foam rolling before you run increases your range of motion, which can increase your muscle contraction and your performance. Now that we've done the lateral quad, let's go to the lateral hamstring. Now this can be a little bit trickier, but you're basically gonna go on your butt and then place the foam roller on the bottom of your thighs. Lift yourself up with your hands, and you can start to roll using your hands going forward and backwards. Again, I'm getting the middle of my hamstring here, and ideally I want to get more of the outside of my hamstring. So if you look at my left leg here, you can see my foot is facing up towards the ceiling. Now if I want to get my lateral quad, I do want to rotate my foot out towards or away from my other leg, so away from my body. And you can see now my knee is rotating, and I'm gonna start getting more of the outside of the hamstring where it attaches into the ITB. Now I'm not fully on the side of my thigh. I'm not fully foam rolling my ITB, but I am foam rolling that muscle that attaches into the ITB. You can bend it if you come across a tender area, just like we did with our quad, and then you can keep going. The third set of muscles that we want to foam roll if our ITB is tight is our glutes, specifically glute max and glute med. So you're gonna sit on your foam roller, and then I'm gonna show you on my left side here, I'm gonna bring my leg across into this figure 4 position. This is just gonna expose my glutes just a little bit more. And then I'm gonna rotate my trunk and my hips towards the side that I wanna foam roll, the side that is in that figure 4 position. So in this case, I'm gonna rotate everything towards the left and just place my left hand on the ground. My right hand is just holding my shin here. Now I'm gonna bring my weight mostly on that left glute as I roll forwards and backwards. Now the glute med attaches all the way to the front of the hip. So if you need to, you might have to roll all the way to the side here. And it should feel pretty good as you roll up and down. And don't be afraid to play around with the angles, play around with your hip position in terms of how much rotation you have towards the ground and then towards the ceiling. The last muscle that we really want to address is our TFL, which is our tensor fascia lata, and it's basically a hip muscle, hip flexor, that runs with the glute med into the ITB. Now this muscle is really important because it is really tight, but I will say it is hard to get with a foam roller. So what I like to do is grab a lacrosse ball. With the lacrosse ball, I'm gonna place it on the front of my hip here, and then I'm gonna place my body into the wall. So I'm pushing my momentum and my body weight into the ball, which is against the wall like this. Now from this position, I'm just gonna play around with the ball placement, and I'm immediately gonna feel, I'm gonna shift my weight to my other leg, and I'm immediately gonna feel if I feel anything tender, especially towards the outside of my hip, coming into the front of my hip. With the ball against the wall, if you don't feel anything immediately, I want you to bring the weight towards the other leg and then play around with the angle of your hip. Bring your knee in for more internal rotation and bring it out for more external rotation. This is gonna help expose the TFL as you play around with that angle. But play around with it because the reality is you really just want to address where it's tender, but not along the side where your ITB is. Now the glute med does attach all the way from the back to the front, the anterior fibers that run with the TFL. So it's okay if this area is tender and you're rolling it. I like to use the lacrosse ball against the wall for about 2 to 3 minutes once a day. And you can also do this before your next run. Now, in addition to foam rolling, you do also want to strengthen these muscles because they are getting tight because they're most likely weak. They're most likely in more of a lengthened position. They're struggling to keep up with the load that you're asking of them, and it's really just causing them to tighten up. So make sure that you continue to rehab that hip, strengthen the hip, and then foam roll the areas around the ITB. A lot of runners have had success going through the HIP program. It's a 12-week rehab program you can do at home that's designed for runners. So I'll link that below if you're interested, and I hope this video is helpful.